I'm Justin. Feel free to follow me on Twitter if you feel like. It is a non-event because I don't actually use Twitter, but I do like having followers because people tell me that in the community business you're supposed to. So John asked me to come here and talk about community. So I do mostly online stuff for big companies and brands, but I helped found the Startup Bus, and we've been doing that for a little while. Been doing hackathons for, 9 years now? My first hackathon was a startup weekend out in Mountain View. I ended up with a team of 15 people. And by the end of it, we had a working product, a patent application, funding, and IBM, SAP, and someone else's customers. So that went pretty well. So let's start. This is going to try and take. There was a session yesterday on building hacker communities. It's going to try and take that another step forward and give you guys a framework to think about those things. I'm going to try and make it a little more practical than just theory. But a lot of you are doing things already to build community, and I heard a lot of people put up their hands and say, we do this, and hopefully this will tell you, hopefully we'll go through why some of those things work and why they don't. But quick disclaimer, every community is different. Just because it works somewhere else does not necessarily mean it will work for you. People are different. I don't know if you've noticed this, but everyone is motivated by different things. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make is this school did it, and therefore it will work for us if we replicate that. Things work because the culture that they grow up in matches with that. If you just take what MLH is doing, what MHAX is doing, and apply it to a really small school with no existing hacker culture, you're going to fail. So your mileage may vary on all of this, but give it a try. So just quick terminologies. Networks and communities, people often confuse the two. A network is person-centric. So I know John, John knows Swift. I may not know Swift if John disappears. A community is people who talk to each other. It's more of a web. I know John, I know Swift. If John disappears, I still know Swift. Twitter is a network. Your club is generally a community. Networks are great for growing your community or your club, and communities are great for retaining people down the line. Basically, this is the same as asking everyone to bring a friend to the next hackathon. Partnering with another club to borrow their members, hopefully permanently. So if you can reach out to the English Lit Club and help them host a book hack, then the next time you hold a hackathon, you might get a bunch of lit majors to show up and write all your marketing copy for you. So use your network to reach out and expand to other existing groups of people and pull them into your whatever it is that you're doing and get them excited. Don't help people. Helping people is actually one of the worst ways to build a community because then they have the answer and they will go away. And that is a transaction and you're done. But if you introduce them to someone who can help them instead of you, you're starting to build those connections that are going to get people to come back and come back for the people who are there as much as for what you were doing there. So don't just give someone an answer, don't just teach them, find someone else who is going to partner and mentor them, who is going to be there to check in with them every week and get those connections really, really tight if you can. The more connections you build, the better you're going to be. And create a shared language. So fuck it, ship it. Who's the fuck it, ship it people? They're asleep. So fuck it, ship it is a great example because they have created this thing that that is unique to them, and people outside of their community don't necessarily understand that, and it makes you special because you get it. How many of you, do people still say grokking? Do you grok it? Okay. So if you're not an engineer, grokking makes no fucking sense. right? So you guys have this secret language within you. It's like when you were 6 years old and you had your secret language that nobody else understood. It made you special. Create a language, create terminology that identifies you guys as a group of people, and then slowly bring others into that so that they feel special as well. If you're just starting, how many of you have existing clubs that are 100 regular members or more? How many of you have fewer than 100 members? How many of you have no members at all? Awesome. So find your first follower. Your first follower is going to be the most important person that you will ever have in your club. There's a guy named Derek Sivers, and this is if you Google Derek Sivers first follower, it will be the best 3 minutes and 9 seconds you ever spend in your life. The talk is on TED. It's all about how the first follower turns a lone nut, the guy who's just crazy and says, hey, let's start a hacker club, into someone who has a legitimate idea. They're going to be your champion. If it's an administrator, that's even better, because then it makes your life easier for organizing things. If it's someone who, people say converts are the most zealous, find a convert and they will go and fight for you. Also, everyone else who joins your club is going to mimic the first follower, not you, because their first follower is going to be one of them. You are this thing above everyone else. And so make sure your first follower is someone that you want your club to look like. And be selective, but make sure that you find them and grab them. A lot of people talk about empowering others to learn to code, to be better, but nobody actually cares about being empowered. They care about being awesomed. People like to feel awesome in their own eyes. When John asked me to speak here, I'm like, yeah, I feel better about myself because someone's asking my opinion. Everyone does things because it makes them feel more awesome in their own eyes. I want to learn to code because I get a better job. I want to build a better thing because it makes me look cool. I want to stay up overnight because then I have an epic story to tell. What is it that you are doing with your hackathon that is making someone feel more awesome about themselves? Why are they coming? What is the messaging that you're sending out? Again, the guys who are asleep, the fuck it, ship it people, sent out a private invitation to the top coders and makers and doers in their school and invited them because it was, I recognize that you are the best and I would like you to meet the other best people. And that makes people feel super special and they will come out for that. People are generally motivated because they want to be more better at something. Efficacy is something that is very, very important. I want to be able to code because it is basic literacy at this point. I want to learn a new language because I will be a better developer. I want to learn how to design because I don't know how to do that. People do things because they're aspirational. I want a better job at the end of this. I want to get an internship. I want to meet more people who have more access to something else. People do things because of exclusivity. Not just exclusivity of something they belong to, but they don't want to be the people on the outside. Nobody wants to be the person left behind. So if you have the coolest club on campus, everyone will want to join that because otherwise they're just the person who didn't get invited to the cool kids club. But most importantly, and studies after studies after studies have shown that inclusivity is the thing that motivates people the most. A sense of belonging to something. So, Pranav and Ati, are you here? Are you guys here, or are you also asleep? Brilliant. So they both they're from Brown and Penn. They both hold hacker hours or code weekends or code nights, and I'm sure lots of you do the same. And people come out to that, but they don't come to code. They do a little bit of coding, they do a little bit of development, but mostly they just hang out and chat with each other. It's an excuse to come out and be social that makes you feel like you're being productive because you're going to code, but you're really just going to hang out with people you want to be with because that's where your peeps are. But also, while everyone wants to be a part of something and they want to feel like they're part of this whole, everyone likes to be recognized. Everyone loves to have someone point to them and ask them their opinion, say, these guys are doing something awesome, and you should too. Where's the guy who holds the expo? Yesterday we were talking about an expo. Also asleep? Also asleep. Apparently all of the great people that you should know are asleep. But you should get to know them. One of the things that a lot of people have problems with is how you take people from that first hackathon. So people will show up to a hackathon or an event because of any one of those reasons. They want to be awesome, they want to learn to code, they want to join in, but then they don't come to a second event. How many people have workshops for beginners? And how many people see those beginners show up to a second event? Reliably every time. So there's this thing called the commitment curve, and it is one of the most important things that you will ever have to think about in community building. Everyone takes a step. If you say, hey, let's get coffee and chat, that's easy, right? I'm just going to show up, you're going to buy me coffee, we're going to chat for an hour. Very low commitment. If you ask me to become the president of your club, that's a pretty big fucking ask. And so you're not going to get me to go from one to the other. You want to take me through a series of steps, each one with an increasing amount of commitment that will get you ultimately to where you have these very, very passionate few. So something that you guys should do is put every single ask, every event, every club position that you have somewhere on that graph. Just draw a line and just circle it. Then identify where people are dropping off. Where is it that people say, too much? And either figure out what is it about that next step that's not making people more awesome, or why is that jump too big? If that jump is too big and the anosoming is not enough, people won't do it. So either fill that gap, change the ask, or make that next step easier. Flipping that around, you get the motivation curve. People do things for internal and external motivators. If I say, if I join the military, they're going to shave my head. The minute I get out of the military, I'm going to grow my hair pretty long because it's an external motivator. It was very, very important that I do it then, but it's not going to keep me doing it later. If I want to shave my head because I'm losing my hair and it just looks awkward, and so I'm just going to shave my head and I like having a shaved head, I'm going to keep a shaved head for the rest of my life because it's internal to me. If people are coming to your hackathon for prizes, that will get them there. It won't keep them coming back. So if you have people who are burning out really quickly, if you have a lot of churn, if you're motivating people with tangible things that are external to them, then you may lose people long term and you won't be able to retain that community between events. You'll get them to come out to events, but you won't get them to come out in between. So what's the incentive? Revisit what your club has as its mission. Is your mission to give people prizes? Is your mission to get people to come to events? Is your mission to get people to help people to learn and become more effective? Does that align with what you're offering at your hackathons? Does it align with what you're offering at your events? Does it align with what your members want? So if your members want to learn and you're offering prizes, then those motivations aren't going to match up. So consider dropping how many people have hackathons that have no prizes at all? You're really tentatively putting up your hand. You're like, oh wait, nobody else is. So consider having a hackathon that has no prizes. Brand it a learning event. Hack on something, your hack nights are essentially hackathons without prizes. Have a learning event, change the win scenario of a hackathon, and see what happens. Because you'll find that while they may be smaller events, those people will tend to stick around for longer. Who knows what this curve is?
Balmer Peak.
The Balmer Peak. So, sticking with curves, this one, so I've heard a lot of people say beer gets people to come to events. And it makes the social interaction better, because once you hit the Balmer curve of social interaction, then you're golden. The reality is, though, that people come to events because they're special. And it doesn't matter whether that's beer or cookies, or whether it's an exclusive event, or whether it's because it only happens once a year. It's something that is special that makes it an event and not just a Tuesday. You want people to have a reason, an excuse to come to your event and be there because they're busy people. These are, how many of you go to school? And how many of you are busy? And how many of you have tons of free time to just fuck around and do stuff? Some would say you're doing it right. Some might not. But so not everyone reacts the same way to the same excuses. So beer may appeal to some people, cookies may appeal to other people, come and hack in this VC's office and meet people might appeal to others. So make it something special. It doesn't need to be beer, because beer may actually alienate people because of all the things that come with beer. So expand your club through your network. Reach out to other people through friends, through other clubs, and grow your network by stealing other people's. Retain them by building connections between people, and make it be about the people that are there as much as it is about the hacking and the code itself. Find your first follower, because they will be fanatical about what you're doing. The converts at that first hackathon are going to be your greatest resource, because they will go and tell everyone else how amazing it is, and they will model the behavior that everyone else should demonstrate. And awesome, everyone who is a part of your community, figure out what it is that makes each person more awesome in their own eyes, and then they will do what you want them to do, as long as you are providing that for them. Take them along the commitment curve. Start them out easy, ramp them up, and they will convert and they will stick around. Don't let them drop out because you're asking too much too soon. Short-term external motivators will get people to an event, but it'll burn them out fast. Long-term internal motivators will bring out fewer people, but it will keep them for longer. And then be interesting. Fuck it, ship it is interesting. And it grabs people's attention. Beer is interesting. It gets people to come to things. Cookies are interesting because it's not just a table. Be interesting somehow. Be unique somehow. The shift space is interesting because it's your own space. It's a hacker space. It's a builder space. So be interesting. And I'm going to stop there and take questions. So if you have any questions, email me. You can tweet at me. I get an email that tells me someone tweeted at me. Or I'll be here through lunch, so come and grab me. But any questions? Go for it. If you shout, I'll repeat your question.
Okay. How do you know whether or not you're starting your community in the right place?
How do you know whether you're starting your community in the right place? Meaning physically. So how do you know you're not banging your head against the wall? So it comes down to, again, what is the motivation people have for joining that community? Just straight up ask people, why do you go out to events? Why do you code? Why do you get together with your buddies on a Friday night? Figure out what it is that's moving them. And honestly, find 3 people. Don't try and launch an event. Just find 3 people and start hacking with them on Thursdays. Right? Just set up something regular and more people will come. There's a guy named Richard Millington who talks a lot about something called the big launch syndrome, which is we're going to throw a massive event and we're going to plaster the campus with flyers, and we're going to get a huge budget and 5 people will show up, right? Because you haven't put in the legwork to build that core group of people first. And a lot of people make this mistake where they try and go big too soon. You're going to be much better served by having smaller events with a really dedicated group of people. Who here has heard of the 1-9-90 theory of community? Awesome. So the 1-9-90 theory states that 1% of your community are going to be the fanatical doers and builders of that community. 9% will kind of show up and follow what everyone else is doing, and they'll contribute, but they're generally not going to be the ones who are driving it forward. And then 90% are going to be lurkers. They'll show up and say, oh, that's interesting. I really like what you guys are doing. Yeah, I support you. I'll be on your mailing list. So find that 1%, and all of the research says if you grow that 1%, all ships will rise. So focus on your core group, and it will bring everyone else along. Yeah.
So one of the things we do is hold events every single week. What are some good ways that you recommend we can make each one of those interesting or special?
So where are you from? Purdue. And where were you from, sorry? Youngstown. So the guys at Purdue hold events every week, and how do you make them each one special and interesting? So that's going to be different for every school, right? And it comes down to anosming your community. What is it that your community wants? What do they get out of it? And then just do that. People don't always know what they want, so ask why 5 times. Why do you want to come to a workshop? Because I want to learn to code. Why? Because I want to get a better job. Why? Because I want to make more money. Why? Because I want to buy a big house. Why? Because I want my wife and kids and my family to be happy. Oh, okay, so you want to come to a hackathon because you want to have a happy family life, right? Great. If that's why you want to come to a hackathon, let's figure out how we can build events around the future, around aspirational lifestyles. How do we help you build? Who was it that had the guy come and talk about how to expand your hacker career or how to accelerate your hacker career? Also asleep. So someone had a guy come in and talk about how to accelerate your hacker career, which turned out to be one of the best talks that they had had because everyone wanted to know how to turn their hacking into a lifestyle, and then how to turn that lifestyle into a good lifestyle. So figure out what it is that your members want, ask them why 5 times, get to the root cause of it, and then build events around that. Then use your network to reach out to other people and bring in new blood every time, because there's going to be a lot of churn, especially in a university environment where people are really, really busy. And ask them to commit something up front. So it's really easy to sign up for an event and then drop out. How many of you have free events? And how many of your free events have 100% attendance for the people who actually signed up? Ask people for $5. $5. A, it'll weed out all the people who are just like, yeah, I'm going to RSVP to everything. And B, people are like, well, I paid $5, so I should go. And your attendance rates will go up. If you put in the smallest barrier to entry, that's not actually a barrier to entry financially, but is a barrier psychologically, then you will get a better rate of return on your signups. Does that sort of kind of answer? Yeah, thanks. Yes?
So I have a question in regards to like...
Hang on, guys.
Mm-hmm. Online communities, I'm a part of a lot of them and like help administrate one. But like my question was like, how do you turn like it's like these groups are like super active, but how do you turn that into like actually meeting up and like doing things in real life?
Where are you from?
I'm from
Rutgers. Apparently, there's some other people from Rutgers. I don't know anyone who's from Rutgers. How do you cross the online-offline divide, and how do you get people who are coming to your events to move online? How do you get people who are online to move to a real event? So you have to realize that in your community there are multiple sub-communities. Some people are super active online because they really want to engage with people, but they're also super introverted and awkward, and so they don't want to come out in real life. And that's totally okay. Because that's where they want to be. There are people who will come out to an event, but they spend all day staring at a screen, so they don't want to do that again at night. But there will be a large amount of crossover between the two. And again, I'm going to go back to the commitment curve. The commitment curve of bridging that gap is a newsletter is super low commitment because it comes into your inbox and it just comes and you just read it, right? Super low commitment, but it gets you engaged. The flip side of that is just having a monthly gathering of all the people that are online in a space, specifically for the people who are online to come to a space. Just coffee, beer, whatever it is, super low engagement. Then you up that. So if they're people who are offline, you get them to join your Facebook group, and maybe they'll see, and maybe they'll engage, and maybe whatnot. If it's the online group, you get them to volunteer to teach someone they meet in the online group one-on-one for an hour a month or an hour a week or whatever it may be. So someone new comes into the online group and says, I want to learn how to do Ruby. And you say, is anyone here willing to teach Ruby? Or, hey, John, I know you know Ruby, will you teach this person? And reach out one-on-one and specifically ask, because recognition will drive a lot of engagement. And just take people up through those series of steps and get them to commit a little bit more each time. Reach out to them individually, make them feel special. Make an online-only offline event, so that people don't feel like they're coming into someone else's space because they don't know those people, right? It's hard to go to a space where you know nobody and be there. Whereas if you say, all these people you know, let's get them together separate from that group and build a group of you guys. Let's get you coming out, and then we'll merge the groups. So try different things that will move them up that level of commitment, and one by one, people will start to come. And it will be slow. It takes 5 years to be an overnight success. So hopefully it takes less than 4 years in most of your cases. Yeah, so try that.
External motivators are really marketable. Like, we're gonna be on a cruise ship. Oh, fuck yeah, sign me up. Like, everyone wants that. How do you make intrinsic motivators more marketable, and how do you get people to show up in the first place with just internal motivators?
So, great question. Where are you from?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Awesome. My dad went there. How do you get, so external motivators are very, very marketable. Internal motivators are not. How do you use internal motivators to get people to come out to events? You don't. So you don't use, intrinsic motivators generally don't get people to come out. They get people to continue coming out over time. So get people to your hackathons, right? People come for the banner novelty of it, right? It's on a cruise, we're on a boat, all things will happen. So I'm glad someone got the reference. But then when people are there, or once you start seeing people burning out, once you identify people who stop coming but are really, really good at it, you reach out to them and say, hey, will you come be a mentor, right? We want you to be here because we know you're awesome at what you do. We would like to recognize you, and we would like you to teach. Would you like to teach, right? And some people won't. Some people don't like to, that doesn't motivate people. But a lot of people, they want to share their knowledge. They want to spread that. Ask them to be a teacher. Have people come out for the joy of hacking, right? Just message to split your group into newbies and oldbies, old timers, and split your messaging, right? And send messaging to the people who have been to 3 or more hackathons and say, hey, we would like you to come to try a new tech. We would like you to come to teach a new tech. We would like you to come to be team leaders, and appeal to send different messaging for different reasons, and get them to switch in their own head why they're coming to the hackathon. I stopped doing hackathons probably 2 years ago because I started chasing the prizes, and I just started creating complete bullshit that I didn't like, and because I wanted, the cool new suitcase full of cash that some new startup was offering. And so I stopped going. So find a new motivator. Yep. Last question.
I'm from Ohio State.
Awesome.
We're trying to create a hacker community. And so one thing we'd like to do is we're trying to find a way to encourage people to come out and just pick a space on campus or off where just it's known that this is where the hackers meet, this is where you go. But how do we go about doing it? How do we go about properly promoting it and getting people to come out?
So it goes back to the Youngstown question in front of you. Start small, start regular. So get 3-5 people who will commit every week to be in the same place at the same time, right? 3-5 hours whatever it might be 1 hour, maybe you hold hacker office hours, whatever it is, just create a regular, repeatable habit. And once you get people into habits, it will happen. Make the space special. It doesn't have to be a house that is owned by the Hacker Collective. It could just be a VC office. It could be a lawyer's office. It could be the coffee shop around the corner that you just have, this is your sofa, and this is the hacker sofa, right? So regular, repeatable routine. What's that? Oh, apparently we get to do more questions if anyone has any more. Yes?
I have a response to that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're partners.
What's your name?
Jade.
Stand up. Everyone, this is Jade. She's awesome. She's going to answer a question. Clap for her.
Yeah, we have, I think we lucked out, but we have a space called the Cave, so knows it, where we, yes. Yeah, where it's just like, it's known for people to chill, like, nobody does work there, we play Smash, we just do like a bunch of stuff, that's where we have all our meetings. I don't know if you can get it, but we kind of just overtook a computer lab, and we have a really cool, like, advisor kind of, who spearheaded the whole, political part of it, where he assured that we had to have a location. And over the summer, we secured the lab next to us, so we kind of just knocked down the wall, and it's ours now. It's ours. Yeah, so if you can somehow kind of like find someone who can help you spearhead it and talk to the administration and be like, hey, can we have this room? And then kind of like work from there. It definitely helps when you have like people come, and then we actually ended up turning it into like a tutoring location. So we have iLab assistants who just sit there and make sure that you oversee the whole place and like nobody sets anything on fire and stuff like that. So it becomes a whole system.
So really interesting. You had I'll get you in a second. You had a professor who went to bat for you, yeah? Or
He's a PhD student.
okay. So you had someone who was more important than you, who became your first follower, right? And they went and they evangelized internally for you with the administration or with the powers that be, and you didn't have to deal with that, right? So if you can find someone who has power, who has a space, who has something that can make you special, convert them. They will be your internal champion, they will be your first follower, and they will evangelize you on your behalf to people that you don't have access to. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you from?
Columbia.
What's your name?
Dan.
All right, Dan, stand up. Everyone clap for Dan.
So, I don't know. I bet Georgia Tech is actually probably more like Rutgers than it is Columbia in terms of campus space, but it would be impossible for our club to get any space at Columbia with every department feeling like, crowded. It's New York. They have like, half of one bedroom is like the entire department. That's the story of every department. Like the hacker club is not getting shit. So we just have one of these rooms that we book that the school uses for the rest of the week and day, and it's a totally different space, but for 2 hours a week, it's our room. So I just want to emphasize that, like, if you can't get something as awesome as like your own space, you can't get a cave, like, just get a room and like from 10 to 12 on Wednesdays, make it yours. Like, you can do that too. And
So
that's impressive.
habits are super important. There's a guy named Nir Eyal who wrote a book called The Hook or something. Hooked. Read Hooked. If you want to build, if you are starting from nothing, read Hooked. And it will walk you through building a habit-forming entity and just build habits. Any more questions? Any more questions? Yep. Where are you from?
From Maryland.
Merritt?
Maryland.
Maryland.
I would ask, what is the most difficult part of building a community? There's a lot of different steps here. What would you say?
100% by far the most important or the most difficult part of building a community. The question was, what is the hardest part of building a community? The most difficult part is critical mass. Is how do you go from 10 to 100? But how do you go from 1 to 10? Right? How do you get that core group of people that will give you enough enough bodies in the room that people actually show up. Until, this is why happy hour was invented, because until someone's in a bar, nobody's gonna stick around in that bar, because obviously it's a crap bar, so nobody's in the bar. So find a reason to get people to come together at the same time, in the same space, all at once, and you're gonna be much more successful, much more quickly than if you just get people trickling in one at a time, which is why you guys have an advantage with your events, because it does bring people together all at the same time. So leverage those events and get those to be your anchor, and continue with workshops and hacker hours, and promote this stuff at the events so that people know that if you liked this, come next week to the expo, to the demo day, to show off what you did, to talk about how awesome you are, or come next week to continue hacking and finish the project. And we'll bring in, maybe you bring in designers from the art department the week after the hackathon to help people make their stuff pretty. Maybe you bring in someone from the business school to talk about a business plan if people want to actually turn that into a thing. Help them be more awesome by finishing their project, and you are the path to that. And get the critical mass, which is the hard part, and engage them with whatever they think is going to make them more awesome afterwards. All right.
I have a question.
All right.
One of the
Where you from?
I'm Swift. I'm from New York, and formerly Rutgers. So we have this online community called Hackcon Hackers. So a lot of people, man, I didn't hear in the room probably.
How many are part of Hackathon Hackers?
Oh, no. Are you a part of Hackcon Hackers?
I have seen it. There's like 10 pages, and I use Facebook about as much as I use Twitter, and I'm a Luddite.
Understood. I won't hold it against you. But one of the problems that we have is a moderation problem. Spam with stuff that's not inclusive. I know that when you're working at the Huffington Post, you probably encountered some similar issues, content. What strategies and advice do you have for us as a community on how we can combat that?
How do you combat trolls on the internet? In 30 seconds or less. It's always hard to delete someone, it's always hard to ban someone, it's always hard to kick someone out of your event, but that guy, everyone knows who that guy is, right? Everyone's met that guy. They're the guy who drinks too much, they're the guy who argues until everyone else leaves the room and declares victory because they just kept arguing. They're that guy. They are going to ruin your community. And it's hard to ban someone because it's going to feel personal. It's going to cause a kerfuffle. But you have to do it. You have to get rid of people who are douche nozzles. There's just no point in having them there. If you have people who are creating an unsafe space, you have them, sure, but then coding is a dude space traditionally. And so it's hard for women, it's been hard for people to have inclusive events because there are some people who are dudes and it doesn't create a safe space. And so, yeah, you get to have those dudes in your club, but then you're missing 50% of the population. Would you rather have 3 dudes or 50% of the population who happen to be women? Like, you get rid of the douche nozzles. All right, that's it. All right, thanks.